Well, my next guest here, Victoria Churchill's coming back on, and we've had her on before, but I'd be interested to see what she thinks, because I don't think you've ever been on when it's been this hot and heavy before. We just had an attempted assassination on Donald Trump on Saturday. The RNC has started. Trump's cases have been all thrown out until after the election. We now know who the VP is. I mean, so much going on. Welcome back to the show, Victoria Churchill. I mean, where do we even start here? I would like to hear your thoughts on JD Vance. I don't know a whole lot about this guy, and that's kind of the one information hole I'm trying to fill. What's your thoughts on that, Victoria?
Well, thanks so much for having me back on. Always a great joy to join you in the afternoons as folks, start heading home and all that over in Texas. But, yeah, it's definitely campaign season is in full swing. I think we talked about last time that, last time we talked, it was right after the debate, and we were like, this is really kind of early for a debate. Like, why are we even having it this early? And I think from then on, it's really been go, go, go for everybody, both on the Democrat and the Republican side. And for the media, which, as I chatted with you folks last time, I'm covering it with the swing state team over at the New York Post. So we've got coverage really from everywhere. We've got lots of folks in Milwaukee. I myself was in Pennsylvania this past weekend. So we're really covering it from all angles. We've got a massive team doing a great amount of work. And
wait a second, you weren't at the rally, were you? Were you in Butler?
So I was not in Butler. I was actually with the First Lady that day. She was doing an event in Pittsburgh, so I was about an hour away. But that means that kind of after the fact, I was part of the team that did, quite literally the postmortem on what happened that night. So I actually just got back home about an hour or two ago, driving back to D.C.
Okay, really that wasn't literally a postmortem. That was figuratively a postmortem. Nobody died. So, Victoria Churchill, you're a good person to talk to with the Swing State Project at the New York Post, because I was throwing out the theory. My theory is not only is Trump going to win, the real question is he going to extend his lead in the House and maybe even flip the Senate? Now, that's going to depend on these swing states. We have Senate seats up for grabs in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and those seem like really vulnerable, like they could be flipped. And that's part of the reason why I think the calculus on picking JD Vance is we keep being told he's real strong with this little Rust Belt area. What do you think the likelihood is that the Team Red takes back the Senate?
He's definitely going to be doing everything he can in his power. We were reporting this morning that the campaign is going to place him pretty much almost permanently in Pennsylvania, with travel out of that state into other key swing, as you mentioned, Rust Belt states like Wisconsin, like Michigan. So, that's where they're going to place him, because those states have traditionally been referred to as kind of the Democrats' blue wall, and Republicans are going to try and do everything in their power to take back those votes. Republicans are really making a play for working class Americans, which is, I think, a group that turned out pretty heavily for JD Vance in his Senate race. And so I think the Trump team is looking at that and saying, well, he's already won over these people once, he can do it again for us. And so I think that was the calculation. I think there was definitely some other people that were in kind of the last minute talks who maybe do have a little bit more political experience, but obviously with Trump, that's kind of, I think, never really been a part of his final decision making, with obviously himself being a political outsider and, having had the career that he's had since about, 2015, 2016 and so on, as we've all been following that for, gosh, crazy to think, 8 years, almost 10, close to 10 years, really. Like if we think back to 2015,
sure.
When he was just starting, coming down the escalator, that moment that everybody always refers to. So, I think Vance does help Trump in some of those areas. And, I think to another testament of Republicans really making a play for the working class, blue collar voters is that, the president of the Teamsters Union, he spoke at the RNC last night. So, those are the kinds of voters that Republicans are really targeting this election. I've always been a person, that says politics, obviously it's a game of numbers, but I always see politics as a game of addition, not of subtraction. And so I think what the Trump team has done year after year after year with the RNC is they've really made a move to expand their voting base from I'd say what's traditionally referred to as like the country club Republicans to the more working class demographic. And I think kind of with every election, you've seen Republicans gaining votes in a lot of those demographics. And, you know, it's pretty easy to see, like in states like Pennsylvania, we're really looking at things like voter registration numbers, something that simple, you know, whether people are flipping from one to the other or just sheerly adding to one column or another. You know, other states, like I think I've mentioned before, you know, I live in Virginia. I'm based in Virginia. That's one of my states that I'm covering because I really do see it as a swing state this year. And, you know, I think that's kind of backed up by the amount of dollars and events we're seeing here in Virginia, really on both sides, is that, you know, the Trump team is making a play and the Biden team is, I think, feeling a little bit threatened. And so they're really going out and making sure that their presence is known, even in those deep blue states. And I think if we kind of shift that, you know, again, a little bit north, the Trump team, by placing Vance in these key states, what they are really trying to do is, again, make the Democrats play in all of these states where they would have necessarily initially probably taken them for granted, right? Like that's, you know, the onus of, you know, Hillary Clinton didn't go to Wisconsin in you know, 2016, and that's why she lost. Like that kind of narrative, I think, is really kind of a sore subject for a lot of Democrats from back in the 2016 election. And so I think now the Democrats don't want a repeat of that. So they're being made to send their, you know, their key surrogates. That's obviously the president, the vice president, the first lady, and the second gentleman, their top campaign voices to those states. You know, just this morning I looked and Vice President Harris's team announced trips to to Michigan and to North Carolina. So again, these are states that Democrats want to, you know, wish they didn't have to play in. Like they wish they could just be taken off the map and counted into their column. But Republicans are making it so that is not the case. And so the Democrats have to spread their dollars and their time with their top people very thin to cover the entire map.
Thank you very much for taking some time on the James Show again. This is Victoria Churchill. Where do they find you? New York Post Swing State Project, is that right?
Yep, New York Post. Again, you can find our Swing State column in the politics or the news section. Drop down Swing State 2024. Also, just look up my name, Victoria Churchill, and it should pop up. And you know, follow the great work that my team and really the entire Post team is doing. You know, like I said, we're hitting the ground in the swing states as well as really all over the country to bring you the best stories.
All right. Well, get to work. Bring me some more stories. This is good stuff. Thank you. It's Victoria Churchill, New York Post.